Hey everybody, welcome back to the call room. We know it's been a little while since we've had one of these videos, but it's because there's been so much happening both in and out of the water. So as always, I'm joined by James, our head coach. Morning,
Hello,
James.
Lou. Good, thank you.
Yeah, good to be back. So there's so much to cover. We're not going to get it all done in one podcast. So what we're going to do today, we're going to focus on a couple of topics. We're going to focus on things that are happening out of the water, and then we're going to focus on some of the events and things that we've got coming up. But as we sit here recording this, which is middle of June, there's a lot of events that we've had over the past few months. We've had regional meets, we've had Olympic trials, we've had Etwall Eagles, Jewel in the Pool. There's so much to kind of cover. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a separate podcast in the coming weeks, looking back at kind of the season and everything that's kind of happened since about March time. Otherwise, I think this podcast could have been about 2.5 hours long. So
Me and Hannah were looking at it, and we look back, and there's probably been 7 weekends of different things. So I'm super busy.
Yeah, super busy, but really good. Okay, well, let's get started. So a few things to talk about out of the swimming pool. So let's start with club captains. So going back a few weeks, you announced the club captains for the next 12 months.
Yeah. So we've had, for the boys, we've got Jack Zeravica. For our senior boys, for our senior girls, Grace Turner. And then for our juniors, we have Annie Webster, and then we have George Leonard for our junior boys. So, and again, what we're looking at is just people that in the pool, in training, in that daily environment, are people that good attitude, work hard, and pleased to have those as captains.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's not always just about who's the fastest swimmer and so on. It's going back to the values and what we're looking to do as a club. And there is an expectation on our club captains that they support the swimmers, they support the wider club as well.
I think with Jack and Grace, they're people that you'll see on the poolside volunteering. They started with that with their Duke of Edinburgh scheme, but now they're helping each week. So I think that's great. I think that for the younger ones to see our seniors and the captains involved in the club, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, and well, that kind of nicely takes us on to Duke of Edinburgh. So continuing the theme of things happening outside of the pool. So when you sat in the stands as a parent and you're looking at us as coaching, you'll see some of us older ones down there, but you'll also see a lot of the younger kids supporting our teenagers. And part of that is supporting the Duke of Edinburgh award program that we have. So maybe share a little bit more about that, because if you look on a Sunday, there's usually 2 or 3 of those kids coming through and going through that program.
Yeah, so in terms of our workforce, it's kind of made up of different levels, and where we have myself and Hannah, we have a group of volunteer coaches, and then we've got this group of young volunteers that probably initially through that Duke of Edinburgh award. And when we're looking, probably most nights, we've got a couple of people happening. And Coach John, he's a massive part of that. These people help out with Coach John on the younger groups. And he kind of manages that really, where he'll have different people cycling through the week and going through maybe 12 weeks of volunteering. So I think when they first start, it can be quite daunting, standing and trying to coach and give instruction, giving feedback. But then as they go through that journey of those 12 weeks, it's quite pleasing to see them, that confidence, that presence, really, really good.
Yeah, and the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme is fantastic. We know they go out and do the expedition and so on, but I can think of probably 20 kids now that have been through that program with John and kind of done that practical part poolside.
Yeah.
But then there's also the next evolution of that. So becoming a coach, a qualified coach, kind of first part is lane minding and supporting and shadowing, which is a lot of what we do with those kids that come through that program. But the next part is going through those formal qualifications. So going through the kind of the assistant coach program and so on. And we've got some of those volunteers that came through the DOV starting to go through that as well.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things. One, that journey. So when they finish that, we've mentioned about Jack and Grace, and there's others that have continued on, even though they finished with the Duke of Edinburgh, continued on. And we've got people that, because they've given that commitment or that level of interest in terms of that side of the club, that the club's then supported them through qualifications. They're level 1 coaches. and even we've got a couple of people looking at doing level 2 coaches. On the side of that, then the club has developed the Young Leader Award to be a kind of next step from the Duke of Edinburgh. So I think that side, that workforce, because we're predominantly a volunteer club, and trying to look at how can we help not just develop the swimmers in the pool, but outside the pool. And probably a good example is Coach Hannah, who she would have done the Duke of Edinburgh, she would have volunteered, she went off to Loughborough University, and then she's come back, and now she's working within the club. So I just think it's a fantastic scheme.
Yeah, I actually think it's one of the things that sets our club apart. And of course, what happens in the pool is really important, but the life skills that we can hopefully help kind of develop outside of the pool. Okay, I mean, one of the highlights of my week is when I get to coach on a Sunday afternoon, and next to me in the 2 lanes are my two daughters. So it's great fun kind of coaching alongside them. So I think it's generally something that kind of sets us apart as a club. And I just encourage any parents out there or any kids that think about that, do step forward, do volunteer, do get involved, because I know, some 35 years after I stopped swimming, the stuff that I learned outside of the pool, being part of a swimming club, that I use on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I think it's probably just raising awareness that that's an opportunity, and hopefully people are engaging in their Duke of Edinburgh programs in their schools, and see that actually, not just in terms of the service element that you can do the coaching, obviously the swimming element with the practical, and then for us as a club, we're thinking about what does that journey look like, and once they finish that, how can we do another step for them.
Yeah. So you just touched on school there, which as we record this, we're in mid-June. Anybody that's got children around the age of 16 or 17, 18, it's a pretty busy time with A Levels and GCSEs happening. And if you've got younger kids, I'm sure they're probably going through exams as well. And it all happens at kind of this time of the time of the year, and trying to get that balance between prioritizing school, which absolutely they should be prioritizing school, but also trying to keep a sense of normality and routine.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
I think it's different for everyone, really. There's people that, I probably wouldn't necessarily know that they're doing exams, that they're keeping with a routine. And then there's others that just feel that they need a bit more space to revise and get on their exams. And I don't really put a massive pressure on that. And what I do ask is that they come up with a plan saying like, right, when are your exams? What do you want your training week to look like? And just kind of engage in that conversation.
Yeah.
And to your point, exactly, that trying to keep a balance and recognizing that being active, still swimming, is not just in terms of trying to keep a performance gain in terms of that, but just to have that break from revision, that break from exams to help that mindset. And I think that's so important. We've got people obviously that have qualified for the summer nationals that are going through their GCSEs at this moment in time. And at this moment in time, the priority is their GCSEs. So they've got one eye on the summer, but it's not necessarily something that they need to worry about. It's them just being happy and confident going into it.
Yeah, I think, having two kids are kind of going through that, communication is key, and having a plan, and just about how you're going to try and balance these things. It's not one or the other. It's just about how you kind of go through that period. But as we say, school has to be, it has to be the priority. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's recognising that at the moment this could be quite overwhelming. But actually, in the summer, it's not just about the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks. There's years and years of foundation of work that's been built up, and you're going to go there and stand behind the block, and the task is just to swim and do your best. And when you touch the wall, you ask yourself the question, have I given my best? The answer should always be yes, and then the result will be the result, and then you're on to the next hurdle, you're on to the next task. So I guess our role as coaches is just to support the people through that, and as they go through this critical period, there's quite a lot of people that find it quite hard to do, and sometimes they give up on swimming, or they give up on certain interests, and success to me is an end product. When I see an end product, people going on to university for our club because we don't have that as an outlet, but that's an end product where they're going through this period and seeing the challenge as positive, not a negative, if that makes sense.
It's a privilege to be in that, be in that position. So, shifting gears a little bit, maybe I'm slightly sad, but I got really excited to see a new pool cover at the Mears. So the pool cover is the big blue thing that comes down over the pool to kind of keep the heat in. And the reason I got really excited about that, we all know that public sector funding and funding in leisure centres has been incredibly challenging, not least since the pandemic, not least when you consider kind of the cost of heating a pool. But that was a really, really significant investment that's been put into the Mears, and it's not the only investment that's been made. So I think that's a really, really good sign of where we are with the pool and the facilities moving forwards.
I think that it just shows that, because it is hard, the last few years, it's unknown, and the escalation of costs that, to try to keep the facilities open across the country, not just here. So, the fact that they've had that grant to help to do things to make sure that the facility is more efficient, to lower the costs of bills, and then that just means that, hopefully the facility will continue and be looked after for years to come, and that as a club, we're able to have a sustainable model where, we're not having too much of an increase in costs to keep the facility open that we're having to pass on to members. Hopefully it's going to be better, but it's interesting, when they did put the pool covers on, they went for a few weeks where the swimmers noticed that the temperature was warmer. And then, after a few weeks, the facility just adjusted the temperature to what it was before. So already in a short space of time, they're probably seeing a difference with that. So, we're fortunate. I wrote an email to some clubs today to advertise our summer Sprintastic meet. And we're fortunate to have the facility that we have that is kind of purpose built to run events. So it's nice to feel that's secure for the future.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Now I'm going to make you feel a bit uncomfortable. I'm not going to apologise, but I'm going to make you a bit uncomfortable because I'm going to ask you to talk about yourself, and I know you don't particularly like doing that. But when we think about swimmer's pathway and swimmer's journey, you start off at the club, and then you move into county, and then maybe you go on to the regional championships, and then maybe on to English and British, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, and then ultimately maybe swimmers go on to represent internationally. And what we have in line with that kind of sequence is a development pathway. So we obviously have the club, we have the county development pathway where some of our swimmers would have come together recently on that programme. We have the regional, the East Midlands regional pathway, where again swimmers from across the region, not just Lincolnshire, would have come together. And then we have the English development pathway, which is where you take swimmers right from across England. And what people may or may not know is, yes, you are our head coach at Grantham Swimming Club, but you're also the head coach for the county development pathway. You're the head coach for the East Midlands regional development pathway, and this year you are head coach for the English development pathway. So first of all, congratulations. I mean, that's massive, and it's great to have you doing that and being our head coach. But maybe just share a little bit more about that journey and what you've been doing, because people may have just noticed you've not been there for a few Sundays. But what I'd love to know is, what are some of the things that you've learned or picked up that you've brought back into the club?
So just really fortunate this year where I've been asked to do those roles, and it's a real privilege. And first off, like I used to swim in Lincolnshire. I swam with Boston, so the county camp is something I'm quite passionate about, because I would have been someone on that camp and continue with that. On the regional camp, exactly right, there's swimmers from around the various counties in the region, and we had a couple of swimmers, Emily and Isla was on that camp, and that was for swimmers that were I think 14 this year, so it was a big focus on medley swimming. So my role was to work with all the group coaches on that camp. I asked them to develop some session plans based on the brief that was shared for that. And we worked on touching on all the strokes. We worked on all the turns and skills. But a big aspect wasn't so much the in the water thing. it was a little bit of mindset out of the water thing. So there was an education on something called growth mindset, which is having a challenge, understanding that if I persevere and I'm consistent, then I can overcome that challenge and I can improve. Whereas a fixed mindset, sometimes having a challenge and giving up. So me and the coaches were liaising, how can we change that? And trying to be, and these are things that we speak about in the club, but some about process driven. We're trying to come away from the outcome of the time and trying to work on the steps and the skills to develop that time. On the Swim England National Camp, that was at Oundle, and we had Ben, we had Grace, and we had Jacob on that camp. And so we had swimmers that were racing as 15, and there were swimmers around the country, about, I don't know, 40 swimmers or so. And that was a little bit more targeted now on their main event. So those swimmers were in groups with group coaches. Again, I asked the group coaches to write certain session plans, and they were working more on their main events. But again, it was a lot of the stuff outside the pool, the character development, and I think a big outcome on that camp was trying to get those swimmers to reflect on the last 6-7 years, why they were in the room, so why they were recognised as some of the best swimmers in the country, and then understand that success is about what they do over the next 6 to 7 years to try to still be in the room and to try to elevate their levels. And that was something as the head coach I kind of tried to get across. One aspect that probably I took away from the camps is we had a strength and conditioning coach called Callum, and he coaches at City of Peterborough, and he does some private things, and he was the S&C coach for the regional camp and the national coach, and that was a lot about the pre-pool and post-pool. And as a club, our swimmers, they were doing it because that's something that we do. But he was excellent in terms of the technique and the practices, and there were things that I took away from that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, congratulations again. It's great for us as a club to have you kind of leading on those programs, and please just keep kind of feeding stuff back into our swimmers as well. But and I know that was uncomfortable you talking about it, but thank you. It was the right thing to do. Okay, so we're going to shift gears now a little bit, and one of the feedback we've had on these videos is people like to see the technique videos. There's one that you shared around as coaches the other day around butterfly. So let's take a look at that video.
So this video is with a coach called Michael Bowl, who's a world-renowned coach. They're talking about butterfly, and I like this video because they're touching on certain things. One is like on the butterfly that we're asking people to stay low, chin on the water, not try and have too much up and down movement. They're talking about the sequence and the timing of the fly, where we're looking at that chest press and into that strong kick. And they talk a little bit about the 2 kicks and how that work. And they just break it down. And this was a video that I shared with the coaches that I think it's there's some things that, regardless of knowledge or experience, there's things that you can take away so that you can go on to poolside and hopefully help some of our swimmers. And this is a video that our swimmers can probably look at and learn some things that maybe they didn't know.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. Thanks for taking a look at that video with us. The link for that video will be somewhere on the screen or attached to this in YouTube. So please go back and take a look at those. And all of the videos that we talk about here are all on our YouTube channel. So as we said, we are going to do a separate podcast looking at all of the events that we've done over the last few months. But let's just for the moment kind of look ahead at what we've got coming up. So as we sit here in June, we've got the Junior Links League, we've got the Sprintastic, we've got our presentation evening coming up, and we'll talk maybe a moment about kind of summer nationals. But yeah, the Junior Links League, the Sprintastic, the Links Open Water Meet, and our presentation evening, all of these things coming up in the coming weeks.
Yes, the Junior League, there's 3 rounds of that. So this, as we shoot this, there's one this weekend, the second round in Louth. So we have 2 teams, and they'll be competing against Louth, Lincoln Vulcans, Pentaqua, and trying to hopefully do well in those events. And then on the Sunday, I think we've got, I believe, 12 swimmers. There might be more that's doing the Lincolnshire Open Water Championships in Lincoln, which is fantastic. I think last year we probably had 4 or 5. So the fact that we've more than doubled that number, and people have been going and training, and I think that's an element, that's a side of the club that each year hopefully will do better.
Fantastic. And we've got the presentation evening coming up as well, where we'll be recognising swimmers, not only for performance in the water, but for performance out of the water as well.
No, we've got some of the awards. So there's one award that I brought in called Swimmer, and people are now voting on that. And what's nice is that that's the swimmers voting for people, and they put just a little bit of a rationale why, and it's just lovely to see the people, because there might not necessarily be people that we expect, and the reasons why. So a lot of it is character driven, you know, people that are consistent, working hard, people that maybe had setback through injury and coming back. Then we've got, I think, the Young Volunteer Award, we've got an Officials Award. So trying to really recognise all areas of the club and as a celebration.
That's it. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. So finally today, if we look at a bit further out, we get into July and into August, and we have the Summer Nationals. And we talked about this before. You know, when you're in the older squads, you kind of understand how these things work. But actually, for our younger swimmers and our parents of younger swimmers, you know, they may not necessarily know how that works. So talk us through that. We have the English Nationals and we have the British Nationals. So how does that work in terms of qualifying, and then how does that work in terms of events?
Yeah, so there's Home Nations, I guess, which is made up of English, Scottish, and Welsh nationals, and obviously predominantly a lot of ours go to the English nationals. And then above that is the British Nationals. So the British Nationals is people from all home nations and people that were in the top 24 in their event, in their age group. And that's from the ages of 13, 14. And so we have on that, we have Zach Hopkinson, we have Ben Roberts, and we have Grace McDonald that qualified for that this year.
Who are the 4 swimmers specifically we've got at English?
So we've got Joshua Clark, we've got Francesca Helmer-Stott, we've got Grace Turner, and we've got Jacob Fish, who are racing in the Summer Nationals. And Jacob's his first year.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I'm really proud of him. And and hopefully, I think the big thing is for a lot of our younger swimmers and even their peers that are in the same squad, looking at that and aspiring for that for next year.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, good luck to all of our swimmers at British, at the Home Nation Nationals, and all of the meets that we've got coming up. We'll do a separate video kind of covering the season because there's so much that's been going on. But thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Take a look at the butterfly video that we had there, and we'll get another video out in the coming weeks. But thank you, James.
No, thank you, Lou.
Take care.